Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all, in a certain sense, insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." When Jung spoke of problems being outgrown, he wasn't talking about petty inconveniences. He was speaking of the deepest challenges of human existence, the kind that shape our sense of self, our relationship to others, and the meaning we find in life. One of those challenges is this: what happens when you see what others don't? It may sound like a blessing, even a superpower, this ability to notice truths, connections, and possibilities that are invisible to the people around you. And in many ways, it is. But Jung understood that it can also be a dangerous gift, one that can isolate you, unsettle you, and at times even endanger you. To understand why, we have to step into Jung's view of the human mind and into the delicate relationship between the individual and the collective. The comfort of the collective. Most people live within what Jung might call a shared dream. This dream is built of cultural beliefs, family values, religious teachings, and unspoken social agreements. It gives us stability and belonging. It tells us who we are and how the world works. If you fit into this dream comfortably, life can feel predictable, even safe. You wake up, follow the rules, trust the institutions, and rarely question the deeper why behind it all. But what happens when you notice something off? Maybe you realize that the way your workplace operates is not only inefficient, but quietly harmful. Maybe you notice a friend's self-destructive pattern long before they admit it to themselves. Maybe you start to see that society's promises about happiness don't align with reality. At first, you may try to ignore it. After all, the collective dream is warm and familiar. But once you've seen the crack in the wall, you can't unsee it. And that's when the trouble begins. The process of individuation. Jung called the journey away from blind conformity individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming your true self, distinct from the persona you wear to fit in. It's the peeling away of false identities, inherited beliefs, and unexamined assumptions. It sounds noble, and it is, but Jung warned it is never without cost. When you individuate, you're no longer entirely inside the collective. You still live in it, but you no longer belong to it in the same unquestioning way. This can trigger suspicion, jealousy, even hostility from those who are still firmly embedded in the shared dream. The collective is, by nature, conservative. It seeks to preserve itself. So when you start asking uncomfortable questions or proposing different ways of seeing, you risk becoming an outsider. And humans at a deep biological level fear exile from the group. The shadow and the risk of revelation. Here's where Jung's concept of the shadow comes in. The shadow is the hidden side of the psyche, the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, or simply can't bear to acknowledge. The shadow isn't evil by default. It contains both destructive impulses and untapped potential. But it's always what we don't want to face. Seeing what others don't often means seeing their shadow, or the shadow of a community, an institution, even a nation. And shadows resist being dragged into the light. When you expose a shadow, people can react with intense defensiveness. They may call you paranoid, pessimistic, or delusional, not because you're wrong, but because you've broken the spell of denial. This is why truth-tellers are often silenced, ridiculed, or punished. Think of whistleblowers who uncover corruption in powerful systems, or artists who challenge political narratives through their work, or even the friend who gently points out a truth you've been avoiding. How quickly irritation rises. Jung observed that projecting the shadow onto others is easier than integrating it into ourselves. And when you refuse to participate in that projection, when you see through it, you become a mirror. Not everyone appreciates what's in that reflection. The archetype of the seer. In mythology, there is an archetype Jung knew well: the seer, the prophet, the oracle. This figure has the gift of sight, whether literal or symbolic, but often lives on the margins. The seer's warnings are rarely welcomed at first. Cassandra in Greek mythology was given the gift of prophecy, but cursed never to be believed. The biblical prophets were mocked, ignored, or driven away. Why? Because people prefer the comfort of familiar illusions to the disruption of uncomfortable truths. When you see what others don't, you carry some of the seer's burden. You may long to share your insight, only to discover that truth can be more isolating than ignorance. The burden of being early. There's another danger Jung hinted at, being ahead of your time. If you notice a truth long before it becomes obvious to others, your insight may be met not with gratitude, but with confusion or hostility. History is filled with examples. Galileo saw that the earth revolved around the sun, but the church labeled his work heresy. Van Gogh painted with colors and forms no one understood until after his death. Innovators in technology, art, and philosophy are often ridiculed before they are celebrated. This is why Jung advised patience. Just because something is clear to you doesn't mean it's ready to be received by others. Timing is everything in the life of an idea. The internal dangers. The dangers are not only external, they also live within you. When you see what others don't, you can fall into one of two traps. 1. Arrogance, believing that your vision makes you inherently superior to others. 2. Isolation, retreating so far into your inner world that you cut yourself off from meaningful relationships. Jung warned that both of these can stunt your growth. Arrogance blinds you to your own shadow. Isolation starves you of the very human connection that keeps perspective alive. The challenge is to carry your insight without letting it harden into pride or bitterness. This is why Jung emphasized integration, not just gaining awareness, but weaving it into your life in a way that keeps you connected to the world. Practical wisdom for the seer. So how do you navigate the danger of seeing what others don't? Jung would offer several principles. Hold your insight with humility. Remember, your perspective is still partial. You may be right about what you see, but wrong about what it means or how to act on it. Be patient with others. For many people, seeing clearly requires their own timing, their own journey. You can't force awakening without resistance. Find your tribe. Seek out those who value depth, nuance, and self-reflection. Even a small circle of understanding can sustain you. Stay grounded. Awareness can drift into fantasy if not anchored in daily life. Keep engaging with ordinary reality. Lead by example. Sometimes living authentically is more persuasive than any argument you could make. Returning to the collective. Jung saw individuation not as a permanent withdrawal from society, but as a journey out and back. In myth, this is the hero's journey. You leave the familiar world, encounter trials, gain new wisdom, and return transformed, not to dominate the group, but to enrich it. The danger of seeing what others don't is that you may never want to return. But Jung believed the true purpose of vision is service, to offer something back, even if only a seed, even if only to those who are ready. Closing reflection. If you see what others don't, you carry both a burden and a privilege. The burden is the loneliness, the resistance, the misunderstanding. The privilege is the possibility of helping the collective grow, slowly, patiently, one person at a time. Carl Jung would remind you, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Becoming who you are will sometimes mean walking alone, but the path of truth is rarely the path of least resistance. It is, however, the path that can transform not just your own life, but the life of the world, if you have the courage to walk it.